I'm Alan Salazar. I'm Ventureño Chumash and Bernardino Tataviam. My family has traced back their native ancestry through the San Fernando Mission records to the village of Tuapu, which is in modern-day Simi Valley, which is a Ventureño Chumash village, and the village of Chigoyanga, which is where modern-day Magic Mountain is, and that's a Tataviam village. I've been involved since 1997, so for the last 20 years I've helped build traditional plank tomols and have paddled in our traditional ocean plank tomols. A little bit of the brief history: by the 1830s, due to that mission period, the Chumash people stopped building their tomols. So for over 150, 160 years, we did not build them and we did not paddle in them. In 1976, the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History built the Halleck, and it was just used one summer, and a few Chumash people paddled in it on some short journeys. In 1997, we built Eliwayun, Swordfish. And Eliwayun was built for the purpose of being a working tomol, a traditional plank canoe made the way our ancestors made them. It's a 24-foot plank canoe. There is not one screw, not one metal nail. She is literally glued and tied together. She's still a working tomol, and we paddle in her almost every summer. And we've been trying to relearn those skills, paddling skills, navigation skills, the skills to rebuild them for the last 20 years. And one of the great things I've been involved in is in 2001, we left the Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, California at 3:45 in the morning on September 8th, 2011. And we paddled over to Anacapa, took some pictures, then paddled over to Santa Cruz Island, the island that we call Limu. And it was the first time in over 150 years a traditional Chumash plank tomol had made that journey. And just to be a small part of it is something I'm extremely proud of, and it's something that I've thoroughly enjoyed learning those skills and passing them on.
What does it mean?
I think most Chumash people, even the Chumash people that are from villages inland, I mean San Ynez, they still have basically a port. It's Refugio was a beach that they would put their tomols at, even though they're from villages 15, 20 miles inland from the ocean. I think most Chumash people, we consider ourselves to be people of the ocean. And I tell people, in 1997, I was in my mid-40s, and I had never paddled very much on the ocean. I had never paddled in any kind of traditional canoes. And when we left that morning at 3:45 on September 8th, and we left the harbor and we got out into the ocean, it was pitch black dark. And we realized we had not practiced that. So for those 5 men that were in that tomol that morning, it was a new experience for all of us. And I tell people all the time, I'm not a brave individual, I'm not a daredevil, I'm afraid of heights, I don't like being this tall. I was never afraid when I was in the tomol with my fellow paddlers, when we were 5 miles out, 10 miles out, 15 miles out in the middle of the ocean in rugged 4 to 5 foot swells. It's always felt natural, and I think it's in my DNA.
As a material.
The importance of abalone in the Chumash culture, in my opinion, it's one of the examples that I use when I talk to 3rd graders and 4th graders. I have said this literally to thousands of 3rd and 4th graders. The Chumash, we were hunters, gatherers, and business people. And you could go to Yokit's village sites in the San Joaquin Valley. You can go to Washoe tribal sites up by Lake Tahoe. You will find our shell beads made from alvela shells, and you will find abalone, either necklaces, fishing hooks, complete abalone shells, and more than likely, they were traded by the Chumash people to those other tribes, not just 100 miles away, not just 200 miles away, 4, 5, 6, 700 miles away, we would trade abalone. It's an extremely valuable resource. It made us one of the richest tribes in California. You can make tools from it, you can make fishing hooks, you can make jewelry. I have found abalone shells by working on ancient Chumash and Tataviam village sites. And some of them look like they just came out of the ocean. And when they did carbon dating testing on them, some of them were 5, 6, 7,000 years old and have been in the ground for 5,000 years. Abalone lasts a long time. It's an extremely valuable resource for the Chumash people. I got involved telling stories at a very early age. My father was a Marine, fought in World War II in the Pacific, Saipan and Okinawa, some of the worst battles in American history. And my father, like many men from his generation, did not like talking about the war. And those few times he would share stories, me, my brothers, my sister, we listened very attentively because we knew it was difficult for my father to share those stories. But it kind of instilled in me that joy of sharing a story. I think it's an extremely important thing. It's a large part of the Chumash culture. Storytelling was used not just to entertain, but to educate. So I consider myself an educator as much as I do a storyteller. And my hope is that as I get older now, and I know my paddling days are fewer, my storytelling days are going to be fewer and fewer, I want to pass that on to the next generation. And storytelling in America is almost a lost art. And to show you the difference between storytelling here and in other countries, my first big trip in my life was 2 years ago. I was 64 years old, and I went to Bath, England, and I did storytelling and lectures at a museum in Bath, England for 2 weeks with 2 other native peoples. And one night, I went to this little pub, and I'm sitting there in the pub, and I look up, and there's a sign that says storytelling, the 3rd Wednesday of every month. I count it on my little fingers. I go, that's next Wednesday, 3 days from now. And I went back to that little pub that night, and they introduced me to the gentleman that was kind of the MC and got the storytellers in order, who's going to tell stories first, second, third, fourth. And there was over a dozen, there was like 15 storytellers there. And he shared with me a story. In England, you are an apprentice storyteller for 10 years. And then after 10 years, you're a master storyteller. I would imagine we had the same thing. Storytelling seems simple, as I'm telling you my story, my involvement with storytelling, my involvement with the canoes. But as I talk and share what little wisdom and knowledge I have, I realize it's important to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So even as I talk about storytelling, I talk about where I began as a young boy listening to my father. Then I started telling stories at schools and at universities and at museums, and I got better and better. And now I've traveled all the ways over to England to tell stories and to museums and powwows throughout California. The end of the story is, I learned some of my favorite stories from other storytellers, not by reading them in books, by hearing other storytellers tell the story of Coyote and Woodpecker, of Muhu, the great horned owl. And after hearing those stories over and over and over, I go, I think I know that story. And I asked them, may I tell those stories? And I got permission from those other storytellers. For me, that's the best way to learn a story. Just listening, experiencing that oral history. It's very powerful.
Story?
I would love to tell you a story. This story is a story I tell quite often, and I tell it a lot because it's one of our Chumash creation stories. And the story, basically, to me, gives you an outlook, an insight into the Chumash culture and how we view the world. The Chumash, we believe there's 3 levels to the world. There's the upper world where the sky people live, the middle world where we are at. It's like a big island held up by 2 giant snakes. When the snakes get restless and move around, that's what causes the earthquakes. Then there's an underworld where there's supernatural, very scary things. In today's terminology, we would say the boogeyman. In the Chumash language, it's nemesis, and they were scary individuals. I think Fox News reporters are down there now, but I'm not sure. In the upper world, the sky people are sky coyote, sky lizard, sky eagle, the great golden eagle, the sky snake, the sun, the moon, and morning star. Those are the sky people. Long ago, there were no people in the middle world, and it was those sky people that got together to decide what the Chumash people would look like. Sky coyote, he wanted us to look like him. He's a little bit full of himself. He wanted us to have furry ears, a long pointy nose. Coyotes have yellow eyes. He wanted all the Chumash people to have yellow eyes. He probably wanted us to have a tail, but Sky Eagle, he talked him out of all those things. And after several days and several nights, they pretty much decided that this is what we would look like. But they had one final thing to discuss, and that was hands. And Coyote jumped up and he held his paw up. He said, the Chumash people should at least have one thing like me. They should have paws as hands. The sky people, they were so tired of arguing with Coyote. They said, okay, we'll let you have that one thing. The Chumash people have paws as hands. In the upper world where the sky people live, there's a special stone. It's a perfect circle, perfectly smooth and flat. What's special and unique about this stone is if you leave a handprint or a paw print in that stone, it'll stay there forever, never go away. So they told Coyote, Coyote, put your paw print in the sacred stone, but when you do, it'll be there forever, forever. The Chumash people have paws as hands. Well, he was bringing that paw down very slowly, savoring the moment as the other sky people were gathered around. And just before he's about to put that paw print in that stone, he forgot about Sky Lizard, had sat quietly, hadn't said a single word. And just before Coyote was about to put that paw print in that stone, the lizard ran between his legs and ran and put his handprint in the stone. When the other sky people came to look at the handprint of the lizard, they liked that much better. And the Chumash people say, that's how we got hands like lizard instead of paws like Coyote. And I want to be totally upfront, clear on this. Yes, I am a 66-year-old man traveling around with his very own pathetic squeaky toy. In my defense, it matches my rubber ducky I have by my bathtub. So that's a creation story. You're going to get something on video, at least from me, that I don't think anybody has. And I'm thinking about doing this, making swordfish regalia. Tony Romero did in the 1990s, and I don't think anyone is doing swordfish. But I'm thinking about bringing it back. So did you want to ask me a question, or you just want me to go with it and run?
Go with it and run, please.
As I was talking about our tomols, it was the brotherhood of the tomol. Those were the men that built our canoes. They were the seamen, the fishermen. They were very respected men, highly skilled craftsmen. This is a rock art depiction of the brotherhood of the tomol. And when we built Elouyun in 1997, I remembered 3 chants that I learned from Tony Romero and Pete Zavala, Pete Crowhart. And Tony is a Chumash elder from Santa Ynez. And Tony brought back the Swordfish dance. And with the Swordfish dance, they do basically what are 3 chants. And they use our split stick, wansock, it's elderberry, it's a softwood, easy to split, easy to hollow out the center, and it makes like a clapping noise. It's a simple rhythm instrument. So we use it a lot when we sing. A lot of our songs are rattles. We use a lot of rattles. The 3 chants for the Swordfish, we usually use our wansock, our clapper stick. The first chant is calling the Swordfish out of the ocean to come on land and dance with us. The Swordfish was such a respected animal that he could change forms, and only the most powerful respected animals can change forms. Bear can change form and become human. Coyote can change form and become just about anything. The Swordfish, when they leave their house at the bottom of the ocean, they turn into swordfish. When they come back to their house, they go through a fog, and they come out of the fog into their house, which is made of glass and crystal. They turn into old men with long white hair. So I'm thinking I'm at that age that I can do the Swordfish chant. So the first chant goes to call the Swordfish out is ooh-ya ha ha, ooh-ya ha ha, ooh-ya ha 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 ha, ooh-ya ha ha, ooh-ya ha ha, ooh-ya ha 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 ha. That's calling Swordfish to come out and dance. You would call Swordfish to come out and dance for one of 2 reasons, maybe more than that. But the 2 main reasons are the Swordfish is the woat or chief of all the fish. He's the most powerful being in the ocean to the Chumash people. He's so powerful that Swordfish would catch whales by their tail and thrash them around and kill them. That's how strong and powerful Swordfish is. So we ask Swordfish to come out and dance for us when someone has passed, or if we're going to go on to the ocean. They're the woat and leader of the ocean of all the fish. When someone passes, their spirit goes out to the spirit world, and they go over the point at point conception and go out into the ocean. And the spirit world is out in the ocean. So to get the Swordfish to come and dance with you on land is important. So that first part calls the Swordfish out to dance. The second one is as he's dancing around and dancing on the ashes of things that you've burned from those people that have passed. And it's another simple chant. It goes, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Wa wa la wakai, Wa wa la wakai, Wa wa la wakai, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Ahili la hasina, Wa wa la wakai, Wa wa la wakai, Wa wa la wakai. And that's the chant that the Swordfish will dance to as he dances around our circle. As Swordfish leaves to go back into the ocean, we just simply chant his name. Eliwayun, ha, ha, Eliwayun, ha, ha, Eliwayun, ha, ha, Eliwayun, ha, ha, Eliwayun, ha, ha. Now, if you can use your imagination, you can imagine Tony Romero, a Chumash elder. You can imagine Chumash spiritual leaders, Chumash men, and Swordfish regalia, where they will actually get the skull of the Swordfish with the bill and decorate that skull with abalone shells that look like scales on a fish going down the back of their neck with feather knit skirts. And as they're doing the dance to those songs, they're dancing to that same rhythm, hitting their dancing sticks together, twirling so that their feathers fly around like the scales on the Swordfish. It's a very powerful dance, very powerful songs. Those 3 chants, Uh,
Wow.
there's no one, I remember I did them at a blessing, and I think the invocation at the Malibu powwow about 10 years ago, and Pete Zavala was there, and he came up to me afterwards, he goes, I have not heard those three chants in probably 20 years. So in the mid-90s, Tony stopped doing his getting up in age, and Pete was married to a San Ynez Chumash woman, and Nikki is his daughter, but he's Comanche, so you know, he doesn't feel right. He would assist Tony in those, but we sing the welcome songs a lot, the water welcome song, the grandfather Simu welcome song, and but those three chants, no one's doing them. So having that on tape, I might need that.
I'm gonna get you a copy of all.
Okay. Modern day Chumash issues are vast and cover many different topics and subjects, concerns and issues. We are trying to bring back the language. There's language classes all over. The San Ynez Chumash have their own dictionary. So our language is making a revitalization, is coming back. Our basket weavers are getting better and better all the time. Storytellers like myself, Julie Tuamite, Gilbert Aswenta, continue on our stories. But if I may get on my soapbox for just a moment, one issue that has become dear to me. My great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was born in San Fernando, California, lived most of his life either on or near the San Fernando Mission, worked at it for many years. And my ancestors helped build the San Fernando Mission. They were the workforce and labor force at the San Fernando Mission. They were enslaved by the mission. Priests and the mission soldiers were forced to build it and work there and tend the crops and everything. And my hope is, in the spirit of the peace polls that we have all around the world, that they will put up a poll and then they will write peace in all these different languages. From people that live in that area, or people that have come to visit and travel, and they'll write peace in Spanish, peace in English, and Russian, German, Japanese, Chinese, all these different languages. And I started thinking about my ancestors. My great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was born in the early 1850s. He survived one of the most difficult, horrific times in American history. And his father and his grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-grandparents, survived the mission period. And I think it's important to put up monuments that acknowledge that the native population dropped from 300,000 to 150,000 during the mission period. And much of that was because of disease. But it wasn't just because of the disease, it was because we were worked 12, 14, 16 hours a day. That weakened our immune system. The food they fed the California Indians at the missions was extremely small amounts and very poor quality. It was just awful food. So they had a very limited diet and were working 14, 16-hour days. Their immune system was weakened because of that. When they got sick, the doctors that they had in the 1800s were for the soldiers and the priests, not for my ancestors. So the missions will acknowledge that, you know, most California Indians died from the diseases. Their immune system wasn't able to fight it off. Part of the reason why our immune system wasn't able to fight it off is we were worked to death. We were not fed very well. We received no medical treatment. And after that, the first 25 years of California history, the first governor proclaimed he would exterminate all California Indians, and he came that close. And on the other side of my poll, I want to acknowledge at least 150,000 California Indians that died during the mission period. By the time California became a state in 1851, our population was 140,000. I think by the end of the first 25 years of California history, our population was less than 20,000, possibly less than 15,000. And there's no doubt on those people. They were mostly killed and murdered. There were over 300 massacres in California, over 300 massacres of Indian villages in California. My father was a Marine and fought in World War II because he loved this country, he loves this land. And Native peoples throughout all of America volunteer and have fought in every war in America. And we volunteer at a higher percentage than any other minority, any other cultural, any other ethnic group in America. We are warriors. We have been and we still are. And there are Native peoples in all the armed services today, and I want to honor them. And then I want to honor those of us that somehow survived all of that and do what we do. Go out and share our culture with the general public. Do what I can to teach young people how to paddle in our tomols, how to build our tomols, how to navigate our tomols. There are literally thousands and thousands of really good, hard-working California Indians out there that are lucky to be here. We've survived some of the most horrific times in our history in modern times. So I want to thank you for letting me share some of my stories, the chants, the songs about Swordfish, and the opportunity to talk about where we're at. And even after all those horrific things, the Chumash, we're a strong tribe today. They're strong people, hardworking, intelligent artists, musicians, and then there's me. I just paddle.